Welcome back to this week's episode of the Rock and Roll Ghost podcast. Remember to click like, subscribe, and to share on social media if you enjoy the show. This week's guest is the Stranglers' Baz Warne, who's discussing their new album Dark Matters, which is out September 10th. Good morning, or I'm not sure. Where are you at, actually, Baz?
I'm in Yorkshire, in the heart of England. It's 3:00 in the afternoon. So good afternoon to me.
Good afternoon to you, and good morning to me.
Good morning to you. Yeah. No worries.
Yorkshire, whereabouts is that for people that might not be geographically certain?
If you look at a map of the UK, it is actually right in the middle, kind of the waistband of where the UK is. And I'm in West Yorkshire, in a city called Leeds.
Oh, Leeds, yeah, everybody knows Leeds.
Yeah, I'm in Leeds, and you've got Sheffield, and we're kind of. I'm not a Yorkshire native. I'm actually from further north, in the northeast of England.
Okay.
But it's England's biggest county, so I've been told.
England's biggest what?
County. It's the biggest county.
Oh, county. Sorry. For some reason,
it's my northern accent.
Too much rock and roll too. My hearing is bad.
That's okay.
So you said you were from the north, but what led you to move further south, I guess?
My wife, actually,
who's
actually even further north than I am. She's Scots.
Okay.
But she got a really good job down here. My wife's a doctor. So we come down here, and I didn't want to be too far away from where I'm originally from, which is a town called Sunderland in the northeast. I didn't want to be too far away from there because I've got children up there. Mm-hmm. And my mother's still around as well. So, it's nice. It's a nice, I'm 100 miles away. So I've got to make an hour and a half kind of effort to get there.
Oh, that's not too bad.
So I'm just far enough away so that I don't get hassled all the time.
Yeah. No, you guys got a little. You guys technically got a little bit easier because it's like, got some some parts of the UK are like a state here.
Yeah. Well, you can probably fit the UK into the United States 100 times, maybe even more. Isn't
that? It's so bizarre to think of geography sometimes, and you think of. Sometimes I think about this country, and I'm like, there are whole swaths where there's nobody living there. It's like, probably good, but.
Back in the day, if you were to try and as we say, crack the United States, like U2 did and the Police did and bands of that era, then these guys went and lived there, and did it and conquered it state by state, and it took years. The Stranglers, we don't do that anymore. The last time we were in the States was May 19. And we only did 2 shows. We played in Las Vegas. What a place that is. Oh, man.
It's interesting.
Yeah, if I never go back there again, it'll be too soon. I tell you, I was not a fan of Las Vegas.
And my editor is going to love that comment. He's been living there for a while. He lives there, but he hates it. So.
Oh, man. It just seems to me, I don't want to get into trouble here, but it just seems to me to be all the broken people in the United States tend to go to Las Vegas. It's just full of sad.
Yeah, well, because he lives there, he's my childhood friend. I've been there a few too many times, and Vegas is a place where you could like it for the first 2 days, or actually not for the first 2 days. It's overwhelming, big. It's loud. It's and by the third day, you're like, get me the hell out of here.
Well, we were fortunate because we were only there for 3, maybe 4 days, I think. And we did a punk rock bowling show.
The Brooklyn Bowl?
Punk rock bowling, punk rock bowl with the Hives. and who are a great band. I love the Hives.
Yeah,
And then we went across to Los Angeles, which was great. We did a large club there. There was quite a huge crowd actually, but we've got quite a few friends in LA, so it was nice to go there. But again, I went there, and then after I'd been there for, I think you've got to be a certain type of person to live in Los Angeles, unless you're a native.
The funny thing is that on my last visit, I got to see the famous Trop walkers, and they're the people on Tropicana. They're all methed out,
Oh wow!
That's fun. It's like Night of the Living Dead over
there. Well, my favorite moment, apart from the show in LA, was a friend of ours. I'm a huge Laurel and Hardy fan,
wow.
And I desperately wanted to go to see the Music Box Steps in Silver Lake.
Yeah,
where they schlepped that piano up and down the stairs in that movie. Well, those stairs are actually still there, and they're a national treasure to the United States, I think.
Yeah.
And every time I've been to Los Angeles, I've never had the opportunity to go there. But this time, a friend of mine took me in the car, and we went and she said to me, I'll take you to see the steps as long as you come to have coffee with me. So we went and had a big cup of American coffee, which was about the size of a bucket. It was huge. And then we went to see the steps, and I was taken back to childhood. I really was. I was like a little starstruck little boy. I could not believe that I was actually there, walking up and down these steps, By the time I walked to the bottom and then came to the top again, I was exhausted, absolutely exhausted.
I didn't even know that existed, to be honest. That's kind of cool.
Yeah. If you're ever there, and it's in Silver Lake.
Okay, it's a very hip area.
Apparently so. Yeah, apparently so. I mean, we were only about 4 miles from there, so it was very easy, and I was not going to pass that opportunity up again.
Right. Well, let's talk a little bit about the album. As everybody knows, this is the last work you did with Dave, correct?
It is, yeah.
Yeah. Dave Greenfield, who passed away last year from COVID, which, this whole thing has been a nightmare, and that's been one of the unfortunate things. We've lost a few people from, famous people from COVID. I know Toots Mayall, from Toots and the Maytals passed away, and how difficult, I guess, can you get into, was it to finish this up in his memory, I guess?
Well, it was difficult. I mean, to start with, when he passed, I mean, he actually went into hospital for something else, and actually contracted COVID while he was in there.
Oh yeah.
Which was, and they were actually set to let him out, and so they ran some tests by him before they could let him out, and one of them was COVID, and it came up positive. And after that, it was only a short amount of time. So we had a huge shock. It was a massive shock. And it took about, I mean, people talk about I turned my phone off. People generally don't turn their phones off. They just put them on silent and ignore them, But I switched my phone off. JJ Burnell switched his phone off, and we didn't speak for about a month because I couldn't handle it. My phone, I slept on the evening that I found out about it, and when I woke up the next day, my phone was just overwhelmed with messages and emails and texts and voicemails, and so I switched it off. It was the only way that I could deal with it. And after about a month, I got a message from the management saying, listen, switch your phone back on. We really need to speak to you. It's been a month now, and I know that it's sad and everything, but life goes on, and what are we going to do? What do you think we should do? So JJ and I had a lot of discussion about what we should do. And the last time we were in a recording studio together was in England, in Oxford, about April 2019. We recorded some backing tracks, and because we then went out on the road for a long time, we're a very busy working band, we kind of forgot about them. You know, you record these backing tracks essentially so you don't forget it, and that you can revisit it at a later date, providing it's been recorded to a certain standard. So we then went out on the road, did a lot of we went to Japan, New Zealand, Australia, all around Europe, and then the COVID thing. I've got a brother in New Zealand, and we were out there in February 2020, and when the band flew home, I stayed with my brother for about 10 days. I just got home under the wire before everything locked down. I really was lucky. So we got together for one weekend, just the 4 members of the band. And this is how I prefer to remember Dave, because there was just the 4 of us in a house. We had lots of wine and lots of other things, and guitars and keyboards, and in a country house. We played around for a weekend, bashed a few ideas down, and that was the last time that any of us actually saw him alive. So it was a huge shock. We had to take stock and decide what we're going to do. Do we really want to do this? Do we not? JJ and I both said to each other, you know, if you want to stop, then if you think we should stop, then I'll stop, and vice versa. And then the messages of love and support that we started to get from people once I actually did. I spent 3 days just actually reading and digesting and replying to everyone that had messaged, because I felt that was important. You know, people had taken the time to express condolences, so I wanted to kind of speak back. Once that was done, and then we actually revisited the early recordings that we'd made and some of the demos that we'd made, and listened to how fantastic Dave's contributions were and how brilliantly he played, as he always did. We kind of thought, well, at the very least, we should finish the record as a tribute to him, an epitaph, if you like. When he was alive in January of last year, we released some dates, saying that it was the last time we would do a full UK tour. We'll do gigs in UK, there'll be dates to do here, but we're not going to tour anymore, not massively, because we're still relatively fit and relatively young, and I'm kind of not 60 yet. I know I probably look it, but we just thought, well, we're not going to tour anymore. It was becoming difficult for Dave. He was getting arthritic in his left hand, and if you know anything about his keyboard playing, there was a lot of stretching and real speed, dexterity and speed. He was losing that. And if he was here now, he wouldn't mind me saying that, because he knew himself. So we just thought, okay, we won't tour anymore. And the overwhelming response when the tickets went on sale kind of forced us into, okay, well, look, should we honour the dates and do the last UK tour with another guy, get another guy in to replace Dave? Or to step in and fill in for us for this last tour. And that's actually what happened. And when we released the news that we were going to honor these dates, the messages of love and from around the world were over. I mean, I was physically overcome, with some of the things that people were saying. It was just so beautiful. So once we decided we were going to do the dates, we needed to find a guy who could step into those massive shoes that Dave left. we've done that. We found a really, really, really good keyboard player. Nobody knows who he is yet. We haven't told anyone who he is yet.
Oh, okay.
You know, so all in all, with the tour coming up and the album, which is actually out today, September the 10th.
Right.
I
was thinking it was the 3rd for some reason.
No, it's today. Actually, I think you might be right. Initially, I think it was going to be the 3rd.
No. But I said the 10th, thinking that it was a week away in my head.
Oh, right, okay. September the 3rd seems to ring a bell to me. But anyway, we decided that we'd release it today. Even as I'm speaking to you now, my phone's flashing, going crazy.
Yeah.
Messages from people and stuff. So, all in all, I mean, if I'm honest with you, it's very bittersweet. I mean, I got the album delivered to my house, and it was quite a while before I could listen to it, you know, in its entirety, for all kinds of reasons. But I think that Dave would have been, when in fact I spoke to his widow, who's American. Actually, she's from Philadelphia, but she's lived in England for 40 years. I just spoke to her about an hour ago, and she's very emotional today. And she said, you know what, Baz, he would have loved this. He would have loved it, you know?
Yeah.
So though it's all, at the moment, it's all positive. Everything's positive.
Yeah.
Some of the reviews that we've been getting for it from the press have been overwhelmingly good. We don't generally do much publicity and stuff in the United States, but we've done quite a bit over the last sort of few weeks.
Yeah.
So it's nice that there's some interest, you know, big interest coming back from you guys.
Yeah.
And hopefully when the world goes back to normal again, and everybody crawls out of their own backsides, we may well just get across there and do some shows. That would be nice, you know. That would be nice.
That would be cool. For me, I've had kind of a reawakening into the band because there's a Sirius XM station called First Wave that plays you guys a lot, and you guys get played on. Sometimes you get played on a specialty show called Dark Wave. Which is really cool. So I've gotten to kind of know you guys. So probably if I'm being honest, the last time I had really, before I getting back into music from when I was a kid, that I'd seen you guys reference, I remember, and this is before your time in the band, but there was a video for oh God, what's the song? Now I'm blanking out, but there was a video on Beavis and Butthead back in the day.
Okay.
They kind of like make fun of singers singing, which is kind of funny. It's one of those things that stuck out in my head for some damn reason. But what kind of process was it recording or finishing the album? What all needed to be done to get those, initial tracks to completion?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, all I can say is thank God for technology. I mean, how you and I are talking now, you know.
Yeah.
It's quite extraordinary. I've got a recording studio in the house, in my basement. JJ Burnell has access to one very close to. He lives in the south of France, and he's got a place down there that he can go to. And our main studio and base is in it's in Bath, near the big city of Bristol, in the west of England.
I've been to Bristol.
You've been to Bristol?
As a child, my grandparents were. My grandfather was a World War II veteran, and he later in life was a world traveler. Him and my grandmother went around, and they took me to England as a child.
Oh, fantastic! Bristol's great. Bristol's a real. I mean, I lived kind of close to there for a while, and it's a real rock and roll city.
Well, it's
really
interesting. Yeah, the Bristol. We spent time in London. We spent time in Bristol, and for some reason, London was too big. I was 10 years old. London was too big and noisy and everything. And I kept expecting to be assaulted by punk rockers for some reason. But then we went to Bristol and we stayed with both times we stayed with like the same family, but like the London, it was these people's son and his wife, and then we stayed with the mother and father in Bristol, and I got to walk around and just kind of, go. I went and bought comic books at a local shop, and I remember I have very fond memories of Bristol. So
yeah, it's a nice
to go back.
It's a real good part. It's a lovely part of the world, the west of England.
There's something magical about being in England too. And maybe not so much for somebody that's lived there their whole life, but like for me, America doesn't have its charms anymore necessarily. But I remember just the fog and I know I just have a very magical memory of being in Bristol.
Yeah.
No, well, I mean, sorry for my side.
No, that's all right. That's okay. Well, thankfully, as I mentioned earlier, we had quite a bit of material that we'd already recorded, essentially backing tracks, which is important to get the drums down, bass guitar down, and some pilot and rhythm guitars. And then we started sifting through Dave's keyboards. He actually played, there's 11 tracks on the album. He managed to play on 8. There's 3 that... There's one actually, which is actually called "And If You Should See Dave."
Right.
There's no keyboards on that at all, and that was a conscious effort. And the other 2, they've just little bits of augmentation to flesh them out. They're more kind of acoustic tracks.
Okay.
Lockdown in England. The first one was a huge, Christ, man, nobody knew what was happening. No one knew what was happening. We didn't know how virulent it was. We didn't know how, all we knew was that it could kill you.
Yeah.
And so, absolutely, with this just being a small island, it just went like that.
Yeah.
I didn't physically leave the house for 3 months.
Wow.
And I actually haven't been at home for more than 3 weeks in 25 years.
That makes sense.
It was a big. To be honest with you, I know it was a pandemic. I know it is a pandemic, and I know that people have lost their lives. But it was a chance for a lot of us to kind of press the reset button a little bit, and take stock of things. So I learned taking positives from it, which I guess everyone has tried to do to a certain extent. I learned how to use my recording studio properly.
Yeah.
In there every single day, 10 hours a day, taking meals down there and everything. Yeah. Luckily, our engineer is just on the other end of a phone, and he could do the screen sharing thing. So if I was getting stuck with anything, I would just hand my computer over to him and just sit there, and he's like 100, 200 miles away, and the mouse is moving on my screen, and he's saying to me, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he's saying to me, okay, you're not doing this right, you're doing this wrong. If you do that, then this will happen, and da-da-da. And over the process of months, I really got I could do it to a rudimentary standard, making demos and little ideas and stuff. But as recording master guitars and master vocals, that's a whole new area. And we got to that stage. So a lot of it was done remotely. We managed to finish it off remotely. Lockdown was eased in England roughly about a year ago, around about October last year.
Yeah.
And of course, everybody went crazy, and they locked us all down for Christmas again because it just, it went. So I went down to recording studio for a few days to do a few things that I couldn't do at home. JJ had recorded some bass and some vocals from France. Him and I were FaceTiming each other sometimes 2 and 3 times every day. And then there was mixes. The engineer was doing rough mixes, emailing them to us. So that's a bit of a laborious process, you know. Oh God, here we go. And it would say version 6. So you listen to it, you make some critiques, you call him up and tell him what you think. And it's difficult to do it like that because generally when you're putting the finishing touches to a record, everyone's there and you can you can make little suggestions. So that was, I mean, obviously it's not the typical way that we would have liked to have done it. I mean, traditionally we've always just sat in a room together drinking lots of French red wine and playing acoustic guitars and just recording everything and kind of, you know, that's the process. So we made the best of it. We made the best of a bad situation. And like I say, if the fact that it was made at all is a miracle to me.
Yeah. The song "If Something's Gonna Kill Me," I particularly thought was cool. The way that song came out. Excuse me. Why did you decide on that as, I guess, one of the singles? I guess if you could call it.
Well, it's interesting, that song, because most of it was written by JJ. He wrote predominantly the song, but he didn't have access to the studio at this particular time, so he just sent me a lot of WhatsApp kind of disparate ideas that he'd sang into his mobile phone. And I arranged it completely from start to finish, and kind of I don't want to sound conceited, but when I heard, there was a couple of phrases in particular of his, and when I heard them, it just suggested to me kind of Kraftwerk, kind of late 70s, early 80s electro pop with no real drums, synth bass, no real electric bass guitar. And Dave had contributed a couple of little bits and pieces to something else which we reappropriated, and that was fortuitous, I have to say. But the whole idea came to me in about 15 minutes, and literally one day later, I'd recorded a demo and I sent it to him, and he rang me up and said, "Oh man, that's really good." And so as it progressed, we've got a Stranglers band and road crew WhatsApp group, and one day he just typed, "If something's going to kill me, it might as well be love," and then afterwards discuss. So 3 of us started writing songs with that title, because it's a great title. JJ's was the best, and it came really quite easily, that song, and it's got a lot of Dave references in there. I mean, Dave was, even though he was a rock and roll animal, he really was a rock and roll animal, and you'll know what I mean when I say that. He was also quite an innocent and shy guy. So, you know, the first line is, "Innocence has left this house to wander among the stars, to light the path before us so we can see." That's a specific reference to Dave. And there's Dave references splattered all over the record in different places.
Makes sense.
I must confess that that's one of my favorite ones as well. I really love that song, and the Stranglers have never been a band for patting ourselves on the back and saying, you know, good job and all that type of thing. But I thought I sung that song as well as I've sung anything. It's a good. I was very pleased with the vocals on that. So yeah, nice. Listen, it's a really lovely track, that one.
Yeah, it's interesting you talk about not the band's not really one to pat itself on the back, but that's also very English. You know,
Yeah.
you guys are a lot more well. The whole world's changing. I'm sure you probably have a different opinion of maybe younger Brits than maybe of the older ones. But you went the whole stiff upper lip thing. Coming off the World War II and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Like
it's very much that. Yeah. It's very much England is very much that kind of place.
Yeah.
We don't have. I mean, we do have a lot of larger than life characters like America, but we don't hoo-ha ourselves and kind of, there's two. You like to be mod. I mean, I'm modest to a degree. I mean, hey, let's be honest. We're all gentlemen of a certain age now. We ain't kids anymore.
Right.
So you can allow yourself a little bit of. You know what? I really thought I did well on that track.
Yeah,
that's
without hearing somebody go, "You bastard! You show off." I just said I like the damn thing.
Who the hell do you think you are? You conceited bastard! Especially from where I'm from in the north.
Yeah,
in the far north of the northeast coast of England, my town is a very that kind of place. Everyone is when I was starting out as a young guy in other bands, local bands, everybody is behind you. They're rooting for you. They want you to do well. As soon as you get some kind of a semblance of fame or notoriety or just any kind of recognition, all they want to do is just pull you back down again.
Yeah.
You don't forget who you are and where you're from. Yeah. So,
Mr. Music Star.
That's it. When I first joined the Stranglers, I was on my first marriage, and for one particular evening, me and my wife went to a local bar that we used to go to. I've been going there for years,
right?
Watching bands, playing there myself. I was good friends with the management. It was kind of, you've got a local pub like that where everyone knows everyone. Right. And I went down on a Friday evening with my first wife to watch a band and to have a few pints, and I had to go home by about 9:30, because there was everyone I was very surprised. Everyone came up and they were congratulating me and wanting to buy me drinks, and this, that, and the other. And then a guy came up to me and he had a magazine we were on the cover. And of course, in the Stranglers, you don't do this. You kind of do this.
Yeah.
So I'm on the cover kind of doing this, and he says, what's with this? What's with the who the fuck do you think you are? Who do you think you are? You know what I mean? And I'm like, what? And he says, I've known you for 20 years, and this isn't the Baz Warne that I know, big, mean, moody guy. He says, you're a happy-go-lucky, jolly kind of fella. And I'm like, yeah, well, what do you want me to do? I mean,
yeah, I did like 300 of these photographs that day. This is the one they chose.
But I mean, you do adopt a certain persona. We're not like that all the time, for Christ's sake.
No, it's a persona. I mean, bands, either you look like clowns or you're trying to look serious.
Yeah.
Sometimes you could do both, like the Who could do both. Somehow.
Yeah. I mean, there's always an semblance of cool, but there's too cool. There's too much cool.
There's always a line that somebody doesn't want you to cross, and it's individual.
Absolutely.
And no, it's.
I mean, other than that, it's been fine. But the over and above all, we are English. I mean, JJ had French parents.
Yeah.
But he was born in London, and he's English,
Right.
you know, to all intents and purposes.
Right.
So was Dave, was born in Brighton. Jet Black was born in London. I was born in the Northeast. So we're all English, and we've got that kind of stoicism, if you like.
Yeah. Well, but, I've always loved. I've always been a big fan of British things. I guess as an early kid, I watched Monty Python. I watched Faulty Towers. I watched The Young Ones, which was broadcast on MTV, which was a very big thing for me. You know, Time Bandits was huge when I was a kid.
Oh yeah.
And, I particularly love right now. I've been watching Ted Lasso, which I don't know if you get that there, but it's about an American football coach that comes to England to coach a football team there.
All right.
Completely opposite, but it's the juxtaposition between this Midwestern guy with his rather positive attitude compared to the British cynicism is quite hilarious.
I've got a friend lives in Auckland. It's the same friend that took me to see the Laurel and Hardy Steps, and she recommended Ted Lasso as well.
Yeah.
I haven't got around to it. I tell you one that you must watch. One that you must watch. Have you ever seen Dad's Army?
Dad's Army?
Dad's Army, yeah.
No, I haven't heard of that. I'll have to check that out.
Well, during the war, we had what was called the Home Guard, which were older fellas who were too old to enlist and fight overseas.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so they had, and initially they were all armed with broom shanks. They didn't have uniforms, they didn't have guns, they didn't have weapons. The whole idea was to create a network right the way around the coast of the British Isles,
right.
And they were the first warning. And someone decided to write a British I mean, Dad's Army started in the 1960s. If you watch the very first few episodes, the first few episodes are all black and white, and then it ran through the 1970s. But of course, all the stars started to die because they were all really old when it started. You know.
Yeah.
So the more popular it got, and all of a sudden one of the guys isn't there anymore, and you read in the paper. But if you get an opportunity, watch Dad's Army, because that's
I'll have to check that out.
Quintessential English sitcom humor, a real stiff upper lip, straight backbone, strength through adversity, all that kind of thing. And it's also very warm and endearing and quite gentle.
Yeah.
So it's a lovely thing to watch that. So yeah, you must watch that.
I'll have to check that out. Yeah, the other one I got into, I just nowadays with binging, it's like I just kind of absorbed all of them. Were this really great show called Toast of London, which with Matt Berry, who was in the IT Crowd, and he's on the American, I guess, version of What We Do in the Shadows now from the New Zealand folks. But that was one I consumed. You know, it's about pompous actors and stuff, and it's like it's very funny. Let me ask you a bit. I don't want to take up too much of your time. We've been talking for about 40 minutes now. But I'm going to ask you just kind of like a silly kind of question. When you go out, if you go out nowadays, it's hard to know, I suppose. If you go out to like a local pub, you know, it's also got food. What's the thing you order when you go out?
What to eat?
Yeah. Obviously, you might have a pint or some wine or something, but what's your go-to pub food?
Okay, well, first of all, the first thing I do in a pub is order a pint of Guinness. Guinness is fun. Guinness is a meal in itself, actually. If you have,
that's what I've been told. That's what I've been told.
Yes.
I've never I'm not much of a drinker, and Guinness seems like it's I'll have to try. You know, if I go back to England, I'll have to get a pint of Guinness there instead of.
Well, yeah. I mean, predominantly of course, Guinness is Irish. So if you ever find yourself in Dublin, or Belfast, anywhere in Ireland, or particularly Dublin, where they make Guinness, it's like an angel crying on your tongue. It's just beautiful. You have about 5 or 6 pints of that. You don't want to eat anything.
I don't think I would be walking.
I would probably in a pub. If I was looking, I mean, obviously, I presume you mean real traditional English fare.
I mean, just what's your comfort, thing? Like, what's your,
Well, I'm gonna go up north on Sunday to visit my mum, and I'm gonna take her out for Sunday lunch, and that is a roast. So it's chicken.
Okay.
Or, veg. You know what a roast is? Big. Like you guys would have Thanksgiving, like a turkey and all that type of thing.
Right. Yeah.
Big dinner. That's traditional in England on a Sunday. If I go to a pub, I normally have like a steak and kidney pie or something.
Okay. That's
or
very English.
Mince and dumplings. Sometimes there are some pubs that do real good fish and chips, but in essence, fish and chips in a pub aren't usually that good.
Okay, good tip.
Yeah. If you're in England and there's fish and chips on the menu, make sure you have a look and see if anyone else has got it before you order it yourself. See what it looks like, because the chips are not real chips. You know what
Otherwise,
I mean?
you want to go to a chipper. You
want to go to a chippy. Yeah. You get it wrapped up in
newspaper.
In newspaper.
Yeah.
Take it home. We've got, I mean, considering we're landlocked here where I live, we're nowhere near the coast. But we've got an award-winning fish and chip shop just up the street.
Oh, there you go.
And the food, oh my God, fish and chips. In fact, you know what? I may go and get some of those this evening.
Oh, you're making me hungry now. Yeah. No, you're making me hungry, because I remember there's one thing about England. I remember I was at the home of the son and his wife, and they had cooked these potatoes, and these potatoes were so golden yellow. I was like, you could buy potatoes like that now, but I was like, I had never seen, because we were used to those big Idaho potatoes, which are white, starch. And I was like, wow, these things are so vibrant looking. I've never seen potatoes like this. And of course, my grandfather got irritated every time we went anywhere to eat. I always wanted to order fried chicken, and I'm like, well, I don't know. I'm 10 years old. I don't know English food. I did have at a zoo. I do distinctly remember having bangers and mash.
Oh yeah,
and
now then, that's a good one. There's a particularly famous pub in Belfast. A very famous old pub in Belfast, which has been there for hundreds of years. And you get a pint of Guinness and sausage and mash with onion gravy.
Yeah.
Huge, big swirly Cumberland sausages and beautiful fluffy mashed potato. Oh man, you're making my mouth water here.
No, I know. So I watch a lot of travel shows. It's like I don't think I had ever seen an English breakfast before, but I was like, oh my God, the English breakfast is so massive, and so I personally love blood sausage.
Yeah.
So the idea of that does not turn me off. Some of the things, like when you said steak and kidney pie, I'm like, I'm not really sure about that one. I've eaten. I used to write about food, so I've eaten some very weird things. A friend of mine did this. He was trying to go into a Native American phase, and he was doing all these old school things. He was doing like beaver and bear and stuff like that, and it was one of the most disturbing meals I've ever had in my life. So I've gone to some extremes, but
have you ever eaten alligator?
I have, actually. I was down in New Orleans recently. I've had it a number of times, but there was a dish on a place in New Orleans that I went back to the restaurant twice in 1 week because of an alligator dish. It's amazing.
Oh wow, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
I think the tastiest thing or most interesting thing that I've had, because traveling the world.
Oh yeah,
you want to try the local stuff.
Yeah.
When my wife and I got married, we went to Vienna in Austria for Christmas for our honeymoon. We got married at the end of the year, and we went to. I thought, well, it's a winter wonderland. I mean, I don't know if you've ever been to Vienna, but what?
I have not.
Oh man,
I have not been past London and Bristol in terms of.
Well, the architecture alone is worth going there.
For sure.
It's just.
I love the Orson Welles movie, The Third Man.
Oh yeah, fantastic. I just watched that a few weeks ago, actually.
It's a very excellent movie.
So we go to this hotel that we're staying at, and down underneath is a famous schnitzel place.
Oh, okay.
And have you ever eaten schnitzel?
I have in different ways. Yeah. I'm German by by heritage or whatever. So I've not that anybody in my family really cooked German food. I've been to German restaurants. German foods. Yeah, that's an acquired taste. It can be, I think. But the schnitzel. The schnitzel was just, and they had one guy in the restaurant, and his sole job was to bang the shit out of this meat and flatten it, and then they coated it in breadcrumbs. And when it came, oh my! Me and my wife, we were only there for 5 days, kind of a long weekend. We had schnitzel for dinner for 3 nights. Oh wow! You loved it that much. Unbelievable, just beautiful. They cook it. So anyway, that's one of the nicest things I've had. That's recently. Cool. What's the weirdest thing you've ever eaten? We went to Iceland many years ago. There you go. And we haven't been to Iceland for a while, but for one period we went there 2 or 3 times in a short period of time, and they served us guillemot, which is a seabird, and because I don't know, Iceland is such it's like going to the surf. I can only imagine it must be like what the moon looks like, It's all kind of igneous rock, volcanic. Very little grows there. Most of what you get in the way of livestock and stuff like that is all imported because it's hard to get things to graze. Grazing lands at a premium and all this type of thing. But what they do have in abundance, hundreds of thousands of seabirds. And guillemots are kind of a flying penguin looking thing. Oh, wow. And you kind of think to yourself, why on earth would anybody want to eat something like that? You know what I mean? It's a bird. But then again, okay, we eat chicken and stuff, but right. But seems harder to catch. A wild seabird. Yeah, they eat puffins there as well. Okay. Because there's millions of them, and you run after them with a net, and they're real easy to catch. Oh my God. I know, it's crazy because they all. But isn't it funny how we view one thing as not food and another thing as food? Yeah. Well, they brought it to us as a starter on a salad, and it looked a little bit like bacon, uncooked, streaky bacon. And I thought, okay, this is interesting. So I said to the girl, "What is this?" And she said, "It is guillemot." And one of the guys in the band went, "I can't eat that. I don't want it. I don't want that." So I ate mine, and I said, "Are you sure you're not going to eat yours? Because I'll eat it, because it was really good." It was really good. I tried to get it out of my head that it was a kind of a. When did you find out what guillemot was? Oh, I knew. I knew what guillemot was. Okay. I've been a bird. When I was just a small boy, I used to go bird watching with my dad and the school and stuff. So I knew that it was a seabird. And when it came, like she put it in front of me, and it was all garnished with lettuce and
salad and tomatoes and tomatoes and all kinds of stuff.
You know, you're fine with your pronunciation. A little salt, little pepper.
Yeah. It was really good. But then afterwards, as we were walking out of the restaurant, I saw a guillemot flying, and I thought, oh, I've just eaten your cousin. You know, I wish I hadn't done that. But
the irony of running into the family.
I know, yeah. with feathers hanging out the corner of my mouth.
Yeah. Guillemot blood all over you.
Oh man,
that's awesome. Well, you know, Baz, this was truly I'm laughing so hard I've got tears coming down my eyes. This really was a fun interview, and I wish you and your wife and your family all the best in this hard time in the band.
Thank you. You too.
And hopefully you guys do come back to the States, and maybe I can come out and check you guys out.
Well, listen, it would be a pleasure. Whereabouts are you in America, buddy?
Chicago.
Okay. We played the Cobra Lounge in Chicago.
Oh, okay, yeah. You know what? I remember you guys came by. I remember you guys playing there.
Yeah.
Probably the last tour.
It was. Actually, no, it wasn't the last time. It was sometime
recently, because I remember you guys coming here, and it was around the time I was really getting back into that, you know, the stuff, you know, that inspired me as a kid. And that would be kind of cool to see the Stranglers. And
I think it was round about 5-6 years ago. It's a very small venue, so we did.
Oh, it's a cool place.
Yeah, it is. It's really cool. I mean, there wasn't even a dressing room. We got changed outside in the street. It was like going back to the beginning again, you know. But when we walked in, it was jam packed.
Oh yeah.
And there's a friend of ours, the band Stiff Little Fingers, Jake Burns. Yeah. He lives in Chicago.
Oh, that's cool.
So he was there with some of his, you know, posse, if you like, and it was really cool. Yeah. So I mean, if we do come back to the States, I'm almost certain that Chicago will be.
Well, that would be great.
On there somewhere, you know. So, man, it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you.
Yeah, no, same to you. And again, all the best and congratulations on the new album.
Thank you.
Being able to get it done.
Thank you.
Sure Dave is looking down on you guys.
He'll be smiling. Yeah.
Yeah.
You take care of yourself.
You too. Have a good day.
And you. All the best.
Bye.
Bye.